Hi kids, welcome back to Sunday School Online, and today we are continuing our story of Genesis. If you guys remember, last week we started reading the story about how God created the earth and the heavens and the universe, and how he also created the first people, Adam and Eve. And today we are continuing that story about the creation of Adam and Eve, and also what they did, the first things that they did as human beings. Did they listen to God, or were they disobedient to God? This is a very, very important story, and it talks a lot about who we are as human beings and how important it is to listen to what our parents say, just as how important it is for Adam and Eve to listen to God, who is their father, who made them. So let's take a look at the story, shall we? When God made the earth, he made man, Adam, from the dust of the dry ground, breathing life into him. And God planted a garden in Eden, and there he put the man and he had created. And the garden was full of beautiful trees that bore delicious fruit. And in the middle of the garden, God set a tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And God gave Adam charge of the garden to take care of it and to tend it, saying, "You are free to eat from any tree in the garden except the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And if you eat its fruit, you surely are doomed to die." And God brought all the birds and the animals to Adam to give them their names. Then God said, "It is not good for Adam to be alone. He needs a fitting partner too." So God put Adam into a deep sleep, and while he was sleeping, he took a rib from his side. And with the rib, God made woman. And when he woke, he saw that God had done, and Adam said, "At last, one of my own kind." And there's Eve. "Bone taken from my bone, and flesh from my flesh. I will call you woman, because you were taken out of man." And the man and woman were both naked, but had no feeling of shame, because they were like children. And a river flowed from Eden to water the garden, and from it branched out into 4 streams. And man and woman cultivated the garden and cared for all the animals. And in the center of the garden were the 2 special trees God had planted. The first was called the tree of life. And the second was the tree that God had warned them of, the tree whose fruit would cause their deaths if they ate from it. And this was the tree of knowledge not only of what was good, but also of what was evil. And they were very happy in the garden. Now the serpent was the most cunning of all the creatures God had made, and he spoke to the woman, saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, I startled you. I was surprised by your question. God told us that we can eat the fruit of any tree except the one that grows in the middle of the garden. If we eat its fruit or even touch it, we are surely doomed to die." "How interesting," said the snake. "You see, that's just not true. You won't die. God has lied to you." So we see the snake is lying to Eve and telling her that she doesn't have to listen to God. "What do you mean? God doesn't want you to eat from the tree because you'll know the difference between good and evil. You will be like God. Reach out and take the fruit. It won't kill you." Then the woman looked at the tree, and she saw how delicious the fruit was, and she thought how wonderful it would be to know all that God knows. "It's all right, go on," says the snake. And so the woman reached out her hand. "Do it," said the snake, and she took the fruit from the tree and ate it. And it was in that instant God's work was spoiled. Something terrible had happened to the world. God's creation turned against the Creator, and sin entered the world. "What is happening? The animals are behaving strangely, and I don't know why." "I ate the fruit of the tree of knowledge." "But God said," Adam said, "God said you would die if we ate it, and even if we touched it." "Yes, she lives. God lied to you both." And then she gives it to Adam. So Adam took the fruit and ate, and then he knew the snake had deceived both of them. Adam and Eve knew evil for the first time, and they fled in terror. Naked, now they knew shame, and they sewed fig leaves together to cover themselves. Later that day they heard the sound of God walking in the garden in the cool of the evening. Ashamed in fear, they hid from him among the trees, and God called out, "Adam, where are you? Why are you hiding from me?" "When I heard you," he said, "I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid myself." "Who told you you were naked? Have you eaten from the forbidden tree? Have you?" And then Adam said, "It's not my fault. This woman here you put here with me, she told me to do it." "Me? It wasn't my fault. The serpent tricked me into eating it." But the woman, God said, Because of what you've done, you will know pain in childbirth, yet you will still desire your husband, though he will be your master. And to the man God said, the whole earth is cursed because you have turned against me. The ground will produce thistles and thorns, and your work will be sweat and labor all your days until you return to the dust from where you were made. Now that the man and the woman know good and evil, they must leave the garden, lest they steal from the tree of life and live forever. As for the serpent, God put him under a curse. He must crawl on his belly in the dirt, and he would bite all the heels of humanity, and he would be hated, hunted down, and killed. So God banished the man and the woman from his presence in the garden, for light and goodness cannot coexist with darkness and evil. An angel with a flaming sword was set to guard the entrance, barring the way of the tree of life forever. Then Adam named his wife Eve, which means living, because she would be the mother of the human race. Before they left, God made garments of animal skin for Adam and Eve to wear. Their life from now on would be exactly as God said, a struggle to survive in a world turned hostile and dangerous. They would know toil and pain until the day they died and they returned to the dust from which they were made. So, boys and girls, this is kind of a sad part of the story, because we hear that Adam and Eve, even though they had the beautiful garden and they had anything they wanted to eat and they were living in harmony and all the animals were kind and loving to them, they didn't listen to God. God told them that they could eat from every tree, but not of the one tree of good and evil. Not because God didn't want them to know what was good and evil, but that they were not ready yet. They were still like babies in their minds. And so they didn't listen to God, but they listened to the snake, who is the devil, who tempted them and told them not to listen to their father. And they listened to the snake, and we see that bad things happened, that creation turned against them, and that they were kicked out of the garden, and that from now on they had to work hard to produce food, to farm like farmers do today. And so we see that there were bad consequences to not listening to God. And this is something that we still understand today, that we need to listen to our parents and be obedient to them because they know more than we do and they have wisdom. And they try to keep us from harm and they try to teach us how to be good human beings. And this is what God was trying to do with Adam and Eve. And because they didn't listen, they had to suffer the consequences. We will see next week a little bit more of the story of what happened to Adam and Eve after they left the garden and when they had their first children and what happened to them. And we will finish off the story of Genesis next week. Until then, God bless all of you, and we'll see you on Sunday School Online. Take care.